And good morning to everyone, and thanks, Dennis. I'll try to follow up on some of your your observations about our recent change in weather here, and well, spend some time on that. Starting off though, looking at the past week, it has been obviously it's been a very productive week. It was until recently here. We got about 20% of the corn crop planted last week, and about 14% of the soy went in. Both still ahead of normal. Most of our crop phenology is still advanced, but it was in past tense good, and then of course things have changed over the last several days, and I'll talk more about that in a second here. But I do want to share as we're looking here at the last week, the actual averages for the week on the left-hand side here still were above normal, which is hard to believe given where we are right now, which is way below 20 degrees below normal yesterday and probably today as well. But I think the bigger news really on the right-hand side, we have had a lot of rainfall across the state, and you can see that here on the right. The yellows are 2 to 3 inches, and you can see for much of western lower, we picked up that's way above. Typically, we get 3 inches for the whole month. So it's a really uh, healthy rainfall, and it was in some of the drier areas of the state as well. But and this only goes note through yesterday morning. There was actually even more rain, of course, yesterday, and there'll be some lighter rain here over the next day or two. We've seen the heaviest for sure, but for much of the state, it was a very wet week. Note though, there's some exceptions. The far southern lower and certainly portions of western upper, but in that southern lower, those are areas that have been dry, and so we could have used probably a little bit more in the way of water there, but a lot of the western part of lower Michigan had really significant precipitation. If we look at soil moisture, and this is looking at the top 3 feet here, look at the difference in 1 week. Really amazing, given what we just saw. This is the image that we showed last week and of course the browns and reds here are all low or abnormally low soil moisture relative to climatology. And you can see that's especially true across the central lower. That's where the drought monitor still has, well, it's certainly abnormally dry conditions indicated. But look on the right-hand side what's happening. And that only goes through the 21st, this particular product. So it's greens are above normal. So we've had a rapid change in much of the central part of lower Michigan here, given the recent rainfall. For degree day accumulations, and I've got several things on here. The two in the background are the totals beginning in at the beginning of March. So note that a little bit different. But for the first time, I'm also showing in the middle here. That's the 8650 corn degree day totals, and that starts on May 1. And so we're looking for that middle one, departures beginning May 1. And it's interesting. The pattern we see in the two large ones here, which is the March 1, uh, still, well, totals range from about 100 in portions of Upper Michigan to now over 400 in the south. And relative to normal on the right-hand side, you can see one interesting thing. There's no more blue on there. And so what we have seen, given the warm week, warm conditions much of last week, our degree day totals now for the season we don't have any deficits anymore. I think that's at least not in terms of that full season back to March. We're still calendar, what Dennis mentioned, wheat's just starting to flower now in the far south. In terms of the climatology, it's probably a week to about 10 days, calendar days ahead of where we typically are in a given year, again, relative to those seasonal accumulations. But in the one in the middle here, for if you planted on the 1st of May, note that we're pretty close to normal for the month of May so far. There's even some areas in the north that are a little bit behind, but just by a handful of it's not a big issue yet. But we'll be looking at both of these here for the next couple of weeks, and then we'll switch over to the 8650 for looking at corn degree day accumulations here over the next few weeks. But still, in much of the state now, we are at or ahead of normal phenologically with heat accumulation. Well, current conditions here on the left-hand side, again, it's anything but spring here today weather-wise. We've got a brisk northerly wind across most of the state and a large area of showers mostly across eastern lower Michigan and southern lower Michigan. Those are moving to the south and east with time. And you can see temperatures only. We've actually got note here up in the UP. We've actually got a couple temperatures in the 20s. And today will probably, at least there, will probably be the coldest day we have of the next several. But it is going to be, and I'm going to talk about this next. We're stuck with this pattern here for at least another day or two before we start to see a change. Just as importantly, here on the right-hand side, there was more significant precipitation yesterday. That's what you see here. These totals were not included in the ones I showed before. So again, think about those areas with 2 to 3. We're now talking 3 to 4 inches in the last week. The areas in green, especially across this parts of the upper half of lower Michigan, but most areas got a good solid quarter to half an inch or greater yesterday, and the coverage was pretty high. And note that northern areas of the state were missed by this rainfall, and there's a chance there may be some rainfall, especially in the northeast here the next day or two, but much of the precip with these systems has been across the central and southern parts of the state. So this is a forecast now looking at conditions for tomorrow. On the left-hand side, here's the upper air pattern, and we look at how do you get high temperatures in the 50s in the middle of May? Well, it's not easy to do climatologically. Again, I mentioned depending on location, 15 to 20 degrees below normal during the day. Really, really, we actually are close to setting some records for the coolest maximum temperatures for the day. It's something that doesn't happen very often. All of that is because of this big. We talked about cutoff lows and closed lows. Well, that's a closed low. A really good illustration, or a really good example one, right across the Great Lakes area. Again, they don't typically move anywhere very fast, and that's what we're seeing right now. That is the reason why we've had this very, very unsettled, cool, active weather pattern. On the right-hand side for this, again, for Friday morning, these are our forecast temperature departures from normal. And you can see right underneath that feature, that upper air feature, it just almost like one-to-one correlation, way much cooler than normal. So there's no warmer air anywhere, at least in sight at this point. There will be, but not. This system is going to slowly make its way to the east on its own schedule, and so we're not going to see any changes overnight. Our weather map this morning, that upper air feature, the surface feature associated with that, this area of low pressure over southern Ontario, that's been with us for the last 2 days, and it's the primary source of all the precip that we've seen in the state. Uh, Counterclockwise flow around this particular feature with northerly and easterly winds and bands of showers and rain. That's going to continue for at least another 24 hours. But it is going to gradually slide to the east. Here's tomorrow morning. You can see a couple troughs revolving around that circulation. Will at least bring the risk of showers. One notable, I think, factor here, the precip totals today mostly less than a tenth of an inch where precip occurs. So we're not looking at heavy rain, but certainly persistent, and especially in the eastern part of lower Michigan. That's going to be the case with us today and tomorrow, and probably even into tomorrow evening. Some of this rain may even come back into eastern upper Michigan here for Saturday, but that'll be the latest. It should all be, for most areas, it should be over. And I'll mention too, for the western part of the state, especially the southwest, we may actually see some breaks in the clouds here by late in the day and into this evening and tomorrow. We'll see some sunshine. It won't be sunny, but at least there'll be some breaks in the clouds. So it will be dry in the western part of the state here, certainly after today, tomorrow, and then into the week. Here's Saturday morning, and you can see finally that again that system is just crawling off to the east, but gradually precip all comes to an end. There'll be a few lingering showers maybe in the far northeastern part of the state. Most of the rest of the state, though, we'll call it fair to partly cloudy. And we should see noticeable, our high temperature is going to be stuck again in the 50s today and tomorrow with that system. Low temperatures, well, I'll mention low temperatures in a second, but by Saturday and Sunday, we should see noticeable moderation. It's gradual warming trend. So back into the 60s by Saturday and Sunday. and maybe some 70s by the early part of next week for high temperatures during the day. So it will be and back up to normal. But this is, well, Dennis mentioned for wheat, this is ideal conditions for wheat, especially where it's at. This is what the climate's like in Northern Europe and other places which produce huge yields. Very, very typical. Our nighttime temperatures, note, will be from the 30s, some low and mid 30s in the north, to the 40s over most of the rest of the state. And in interior areas of northern lower and upper Michigan, away from the lakes, we will see the threat of frost almost on a daily basis here. We've got some this morning, but all the way through the end of the weekend, almost daily. So it's still going to be late winter, early spring in those areas. And again, it's not going to be likely a hard freeze, but just low-lying areas will probably still see some frost formation with temperatures again between 32, 36, that type of thing. So cool for the even for the northern part of the state. That's cool. Uh, Precipitation totals. We're gonna turn off the water to a large extent. And you can see here through next Thursday, much less than a quarter of an inch for most of the state. So we're going to gradually get warmer, but we're going to get drier into next week. And that's the pattern and the trajectory. We're headed with cool temperatures here, especially over the next couple days. Our PET totals for the week, if you're looking at water, thinking about water demand, they're going to be below normal, at least for this next several days. Next week, they'll be back to near normal. And that the normals should be 1300s, 1400s of an inch per day. That's the evaporative demand if the water were there. But this week, the total for the week is going to be less than normal. So not that in most areas, water is not going to be a limiting factor other than if you're out trying to walking or drive in a field right now. That's not going to be easy. But we should see gradual drying here coming up by the weekend and into next week, and hopefully that'll be the next opportunity. Next precip chance after today and tomorrow, probably coming maybe the middle of next week. And right now, there isn't anything on the guidance that suggests this is going to be a big system like what we saw last week coming. Right now, it's definitely looks drier than normal for much of the upcoming week. So there should be hopefully increasing opportunities as we move into next week. Now, let's wrap up here with the extended range because there are additional changes indicated there on both the 6 to 10 and 8 to 14 day outlooks. They still have that troughing feature over the east, which is where we are now. But it's weaker and it actually starts to move off to the east and ridging and warmer temperatures, which have been out over Western North America, they start to shift into the middle of the country, and that's going to impact us. And so while we still see some cool temperatures here in the near future, going out about a week, there should be some moderation. I think the message here, though, for both of these, note for the precipitation, it's a fairly good likelihood of drier than normal conditions. So for the end of May and into the first couple of days of June, look for a moderating temperature, but a drier than normal pattern as we move into June. And I did want to show this because most of the guidance also suggests now that we will see some type of a pattern change in early June. And that pattern here on the left-hand side, you can see it has a broad ridge over the central and eastern part of North America, and our temperatures go back to above normal. So Dennis, it didn't happen today with your heat stress, but it is, and this isn't anything, it's not looking like a heat wave or anything like that, but it certainly is going to be closer to above normal. So, and the timing, of course, not great for where the wheat is, but it is going to warm up to above normal. Also note that the precipitation is forecast to increase to normal to above normal levels. Once again, that would be probably a disease issue, but certainly we are by early June, we are expected to warm up. And finally here, for the new long lead outlooks, the top panels here are for the month of June. The bottom two panels are for June, July, and August, our summer period. All of them are calling for warmer than normal temperatures. So that's been consistent over the last couple runs. Precipitation near to maybe a little bit above normal. That's been all over the map. But the warmer than normal temperature forecast, I think that's really the take home here in the message in the long lead guidance. And with that, I will wrap up. And again, more big changes is expected here in the next couple of days. More doom, gloom and cool temp weather, wet weather. But by the weekend, and it's a holiday weekend too. I guess we have to be grateful for that. It looks pretty good for being outside, and certainly warmer than it is now.